Hey guys, Matthew here, and today it's going to be a video about my warm-up. This is going to be a part 1 where I describe my basic warm-up before each exercise. So I have a shoulder complex I do before every upper body exercise, as well as specific activations and drills and mobility work that I do before each movement to get myself ready to execute it. There's also going to be a part 2 where I break down my warm-up sets, the technique I use on the reps during the warm-up sets, as well as the structure of the warm-up sets themselves. So the amount of sets, the reps, the step in weight which I use. But that's for another video, because if I try to combine everything into this one, it will be too long. So today it's only about the shoulder complex and the specific activations. I will not touch on the squats today because that's a completely different topic, and I believe that my warm-up for squats is nothing special, and there are much more informative and useful videos on squats warm-ups out there, so I will not touch squats. But for pull-ups, chin-ups and dips, I definitely have something to say, so this is what this video is going to be about. Enjoy! First of all, let's start with the shoulder complex. So before every upper body movement, be it muscle-ups, chin-ups, pull-ups, dips, I do a shoulder warm-up complex, and it's always the same. So as you know, the shoulder joint is the most complicated in the upper body, and it has the most plane of movement and the most possible amount of movement in general. So it's also the most traumatic, so you really have to warm it up well in order to ensure optimal performance and prevent any possible injuries. So that's what the shoulder complex here is about. So in it, I try to hit every movement, as well as some other movements like biceps and chest, but it's mostly centered around shoulders, and I do it before every upper body movement. So it starts with low raises, and I usually do it with 2.5 kilo plates, but for demonstration purposes here, I will use 125s because I'm lazy. So I start with low raises for 12 reps. And I don't start with just full raises. I build up my range of motion in order for it to be comfortable and avoid any pains or discomfort. So as you can see, the first couple of reps, I increase the range of motion until I hit the full range of motion, and starting with the first full range of motion rep, I do 12 reps. Alright, so the low raises are done. Now it's time for the rotations. So after the low raises, I do the full range of motion arm rotations backwards. So like this. Also 12 reps. Alright, so the shoulders are now pretty warm and ready for some more specific movements. So the next one I do is for the front delt and the upper chest, and this region is really gets taxed during dips as well as pronated grip pull-ups, because in pull-ups you have this extended position where the chest stretches a lot, and sometimes it can lead to soreness and pain and tightness. So in order to avoid it, you have to warm up your chest before pull-ups. Yeah, and before dips, yeah, of course, because chest is the prime mover during dips, especially the upper part. If you're doing the street lifting technique, if you're doing this closed position, your upper chest works really hard in order for you to keep the shoulder position closed. So it's a really important movement, and it basically looks like this. So I have plates in both of my arms, but I do it unilaterally, so one arm at a time. And what I do is I bend to the side a little bit, and I contract my chest and the front delt, and I kind of try to pull my arm through my chest to touch my shoulder. But I also try to keep it almost straight. So, and the movement looks like this. And although it doesn't look like much, if you do it right, with strong contraction and focus, you will really feel it in your chest, and it's great for warm-up. So now the other arm. Alright, so that's 12 reps per arm, and my chest is now feeling really warm and ready. So the lean to the side is needed so that you get the actual chest, not just the front delt. So if you do it just standing up like this, you won't get much of a chest contraction here, because the chest is not working against gravity. It's only the front delt that does. But if you bend to the side, now you can really feel that chest working. And this is what makes all the difference here in this exercise. So now, after the chest activation, I do the bicep activation. So it's pretty easy, but still, in order to avoid doing specific curls and stuff, I just do it right here in this complex, so I don't have to do a specific curl movement later on. So just bicep curls for 12 reps with this little weight. Notice that I am not supinated all the way through. I start with the hammer grip and supinate as I go up for even more bicep contraction and more overall warm-up of the elbow flexors. All right, and the last exercise in my complex here is external rotation. So what I do, I bend my arms 90 degrees, then raise them to the sides and do the external rotation movement. So external rotation is, of course, as you know, really important. Rotator cuff is a very delicate part of the shoulder, so it needs a thorough warm-up and it needs to be made ready in order to perform. So this is why I do this rotation, to warm up my shoulder rotator cuff. So this was the general complex I do before every movement. Now let's get to the specifics, and we will start with the pull-ups. So now let's get to the pull-specific warm-up. And the first thing I do before my pull-ups is more external rotation. For pull-ups specifically, it's really important because basically my pull-up consists of two parts. I pull with my arms in front of the body. So the first half of the pull goes like this. And then when I'm around the middle range of motion and I need to get myself closer to the bar, I pull my elbows to the sides strongly and pull myself forward towards the bar in a motion like this. So imagine this is the pull-up bar, so I pull like this. So this movement is very fast, very abrupt, and it requires a lot of warming up in order to not mess up and not get injured. So external rotation, so this is basically what happens. External rotation. So this is why warming up the external rotation is extremely important. So usually when I'm feeling good and I don't feel that I need any extra work to get warmed up, I do just face pulls. I do it with a tricep push down rope, and basically this is the technique. I lean back a little bit and focus on pulling my arms all the way through to my ears and externally rotating my arms, so like this. As you can see, it's pretty similar to the movement I described on my pull-ups. So this and this on the pull-ups. So, and it's also both arms at a time. So it's a really good way to save time. But if one of my shoulders for some reason is feeling worse than usual, and I feel like that it needs an extra warm-up, what I will do is I will do a unilateral version of this exercise and do one arm at a time. So of course it's lighter weight as it's just one arm, and how I do it is I grab this handle and I rotate a little bit towards it, so that I get a deeper contraction, and I focus on, first of all, external rotation, but also overall pulling my elbow and the forearm back, so it is even more similar to the closing motion of the pull-up, so like this. And I then repeat it for the other arm, just to be balanced. Yeah. And now, after these two exercises, the external rotation is ready for some pull-ups, of course. Right, so the second exercise I do for my warm-up, I do it both before pull-ups, chin-ups, and also before muscle-ups, just to get my forearms warm, is the wrist curl. And I do it arm wrestling style with the Rolling Thunder that is happily available in this gym. I'm really glad that it is. So, you're probably familiar with golfer's elbow, which is the pain right here in the forearm where the pronator muscle is. So it's really common to get this pain from overuse, especially from chin-ups, but also from pull-ups and muscle-ups. So what this exercise does is it allows me to pump some blood into this area, which is prone to damage. And this blood flow, it releases a lot of pain and prevents me from getting further inflammation and helps me reduce the already existing inflammation. So it's a great exercise to prevent golfer's elbow, and yeah, it basically looks just like this. So one arm at a time, closed position, just like when arm wrestling, and just wrist curling with real focus on this part here. So curling and really focusing on that forearm, on getting the blood flowing. And finishing with a little bit of a hold to really get that contraction. And of course, the second arm gets the attention as well. So for pull-ups, the next part will be releasing the tight front delts and upper chest with this little ball right here. So when my upper chest and front delts feel extra tight, maybe sore from dips, maybe just overworked from volume, I will release my upper chest and front delts with this little ball right here before pulling, so that it doesn't affect my mobility in the bottom part of the pull-up and I don't overstretch this stuff, and then it doesn't affect my dips, because when I don't warm up with it enough, I can get really long-lasting pains in this region right here. So in order to prevent it, I use this ball, and it basically goes like this. So I put it here and I start carefully working my chest fibers like this, and I always try to follow the direction of the fibers with my motions. So when I work the middle of the chest, I just go horizontally, but when I get to the upper chest, I start moving diagonally a little bit so that the motion follows the direction of the fibers, like this. And then I get to the front delt and the motion becomes even more vertical. And this really helps releasing these tight fibers and relieving all that pain in this region here. And of course, I always do it for both sides and the front delt as well. So I usually do around 20 to 30 reps for the chest and around 20 reps for the front delt, just for one set, and it's enough to get me a little loosened up and really warm and comfortable and ready to start my pull-up sets. So we've covered the pull-ups, and it's really just very basic stuff, because pull-ups are overall not a complicated movement. It doesn't require any serious mobility, but my warm-up for chin-ups is quite a bit more complicated than the one for pull-ups, because I have very limited supination and I also have very inflexible wrists. So this is also the thing that I need to warm up. So there are some specific exercises I do so my chin-ups feel more comfortable. And let's start with the supination. If I don't mobilize my supination, I get a feeling that my forearm bones are going to break, and I also get like really painful extensors here. Extensors and the supinator muscle in the forearm. It really needs a good warm-up so that it doesn't hurt. So what I do for my supination is I take a plate, I grab something that allows me to hold on and not lose my balance, and I do this supination motion, just like this, with a plate. I do it with a plate because other equipment like kettlebells and stuff are not always available in every gym, specifically in competitions, but if you are in a weighted competition or in any gym, you will always have plates. So I just got used to doing this exercise with a plate, and notice how I keep my elbow pit here almost stationary. So I don't rotate with the shoulder like this. I try to keep my elbow stationary and rotate only the forearm, so that the supinator muscle in the forearm does the work, not the shoulder, because it's the supinator muscle that gets the most damage when it's not warmed up. So like this, and now the other arm, the same thing. And in the most supinated position, I try to hold a little bit to really feel that contraction and warmth in the supinator. And I do 12 to 15 reps for each arm. So the second specific exercise I do for my chin-ups is finger activation. So in chin-ups, it's really important for me to get a good full grip on the bar, but I don't always do the full grip. Like when I do locked reps or high reps, I use a semi-grip where my fingers are basically like this. So I contract my index and middle fingers fully, but I relax other fingers so that my wrist has more mobility to move sideways like this. So with a full grip, I cannot move to this range of motion, but with fingers relaxed, I have much more range. So my fingers have to be ready for this kind of load. So the first exercise is to warm up the fingers, and the second couple of exercises will be to mobilize them. So I start with a barbell, and it's really convenient because you can rotate it. And that's exactly what I do here. So for finger activation, I will do just simple rotations like this. And I really try to contract my fingers and imitate the part where I set my grip on the bar. So I imagine this is the pull-up bar, and I really try to get that deep grip. But I just don't stay here. I just rotate the bar and keep going for reps. And I do around 15 reps like this until my forearms feel warm and almost pumped. When this happens, I switch. And I also warm up the extensors the same way. So I rotate the barbell just backwards. And extensors are also important because remember what I said about the supinator. It gets very painful and sore if I don't warm it up well. So the same goes for the extensors. So my extensors also have to be warm for chin-ups. So this is the exercise I use to warm them up. So rotations, same deep grip, same effort, same motion like I try to set my grip for a heavy chin-up set. But this time I rotate the other direction. Also for around 15 reps. And by the end of such a set, even with an empty barbell, you will feel some really good warmth here in the forearm. And this is exactly what you need for pain-free and good mobile chin-ups. Now, let's get to the mobility part. So now the forearms are warm, both from the inside and from the outside. So now we can mobilize so that I can get that range of motion to the side. So what I do is I grip the barbell with a full grip around shoulder width, and I do these little pulses like this. So I turn my forearms to the sides until I can feel a serious stretch in this part of the wrist, but not too much. And then I let go and bring my forearms back. So this is like dynamic mobility work. Not static, but dynamic. I do this for around 15 reps and I finish it up with a static hold for around 10 to 12 seconds. So 15 pulses like this and then a hold. And during the hold I can also try to imitate the locking motion in the chin up. So like this. And it really helps with wrist mobility, especially if your wrist mobility is very poor like mine. This is a lifesaver right here. So, and the final exercise I do for my wrist preparation for chin-ups is supination stretching on the floor. So I get to the floor, I put my hands into the supinated position, but not fully supinated, like I don't go all the way like this because this would basically break my wrists. So to this supinated but not exactly fully. And I start leaning back with these little pulses, same as I did with the barbell. So dynamic stretching. So, and with each pulse, I try to go a little bit further while also keeping my elbows straight. And after around 10 to 12 pulses, I will also have a static hold. And here we go. So it's important to not overstretch the forearms, because overstretching basically makes your muscles weaker, relaxes them too much, but just the right amount of pulses and a short static hold after them will both mobilize and warm up your forearms while also not weakening you. So, and also you do this all in a supinated position, so after that you are ready to grab the bar with a supinated grip and feel good. So a lot of people I know, like Andrei here for example, they don't have to do all this stuff because their supination mobility and wrist mobility are great, but mine supination mobility is not great and my wrists are quite problematic in this position. So I have to do all of this stuff just to do pain-free chin-ups. And even though like it's not always pain-free, so I cannot sustain chin-ups for very long periods of time, so only for specific competitions where they require a chin lock, because pull-up chin lock is much harder than chin-ups, so I have to use chin-ups in Russian competitions. But yeah, for the most part, I just try to stick to the pull-ups because they are just so much less problematic. So we covered the pull warm-up. So for pull-ups specifically and for chin-ups, for muscle-ups, I don't really do anything special. Just the same shoulder complex, then the pull-up, external rotation, wrist warm-up, and then some wrist mobility similar to what I do for chin-ups. And then I do muscle-ups, so nothing special. Let's now get to the dips warm-up. And this will be a little bit more interesting because dips require a very thorough warm-up, especially of the upper chest. And we covered that a little bit in the shoulder complex, but I also do some specific stuff here. So my specific warm-up for dips after I do my shoulder complex starts with this thing right here, so chest flies. And I usually do my chest flies in this machine right here because it allows me to warm up both arms at the same time. And it looks like this. Get into position. And I put the machine so that I get a good stretch in the end range. And I retract my scapula and bring my arms together almost straight. And as you can see, my seat right here is very low so that I hit more of the upper chest than the lower chest, because the upper chest is the most problematic portion of the chest muscle when it comes to dips for me. And it really requires a thorough warm-up. And another thing is that I try to contract my chest all the way when I bring my arms together so that the things right here touch. And as you can see, I grip not the handles but the pipe itself so that I get my arms even closer together for a peak contraction. And when I get these pipes together, I also squeeze them together a little bit so that the contraction is even stronger. So 12 reps of this and your chest is good to go. But if you don't have a chest fly machine available like this, you can also use rubber bands, and they are also very convenient for this matter and for this exercise. And they are in some cases even better than the fly machine because you can really work like both lower chest, the mid chest, and the upper chest. And you can really decide on the direction of the load. And this rubber band right here is from the sponsor of this video, King of Weighted, the same as my t-shirt. So if you are interested in top quality belts, rubber bands, wrist straps, elbow sleeves, and training t-shirts, head on right to the King of Weighted online website and order your stuff there. And don't forget to use my discount code ZLAT for a 5% discount. This helps me, this helps grow street lifting, and you just get nice calisthenics equipment. So yeah, if you are interested, visit the website. The link will be in the description. And yes, this is an advertisement. So with the rubber band, it's basically the same movement, but one arm at a time. And you also can work in multiple planes here. So if I am warming up with the rubber band, I will start with the lower chest like this. So this motion right here for 10 to 12 reps. The middle chest like this. And then the upper chest. And of course, both arms, as always. So of course, a very important and necessary part of a strong dip is also your triceps. So I warm that up as well. And in order to prepare my elbows and prepare my triceps for the weighted dip loads, I usually use the tricep push-down attachment in a crossover like this. So it's basically just regular tricep push-down, nothing too special, like this. So I try to keep my arms close to the body, and at the bottom of the motion I try to pull apart the attachment so that I get a peak contraction. And also at the peak contraction I hold for a little bit so that I imitate the dead stop part of the dip. So why I choose this exercise over anything else? Because it's done in a similar way to a dip. So you're standing upright and you're pushing down. So in a dip, you're pushing down while being upright, and here you're also pushing down while being upright. So it's more specific for the dip than compared to, for example, skull crushers or overhead extensions. So this is more dip specific, and that's why I do this exercise, because it really feels a bit like a dip. And of course, you can substitute the crossover with the rubber band from King of Weighted, of course. Just put the rubber band over a pull-up bar or anything that it can be attached to, and you can do it both like this with the double sides, or if the attachment is way higher up, you can use a single thickness and the rubber band like this. And it's basically the same motion, just the strength curve is a little bit different and you get more load in the bottom position. And for dip warm-up, it's basically optimal because what you really need to warm up is right here, because the tricep is the most active during the lockout phase. And with this kind of strength curve, you are getting the most load exactly during the lockout phase. So yeah, that is specific, that is good. And the final exercise I do before dips, before starting my warm-up sets, is the core drill, like this. So it's called bird dog, and it's really common in some rehab programs. And why I do specifically this exercise is that because it doesn't really have any loading to it, but you can also really feel the contraction. So you don't get fatigued, but you get really activated during this. So this is why I chose exactly this exercise, and I do it like this. So I go into a quadruped position, then I exhale and go into that exaggerated hollow position with my abs contracted and my shoulders protracted and head down, so like this. And from here I arch, inhale, and contract my lower back, my spine extensors, as well as my trapezius, and I go into that exaggerated arch. And then exhale and go back to hollow. And I do around 10 reps with strong contractions of both my lower back and my abs. And this is a single exercise that warms up both of them. So after I do this, I have all of my core ready and firing in order to do my dips. And as you know, in the street lifting technique, the core activation, the crunch when you go down to the dip, is very important. So this exercise, it helps me crunch more effectively and prepares my core for all the demands that weighted dips bring. Alright, so this was the part 1 of my warm-up. So the warm-up video was one of the most requested in the comments when I asked what kind of videos do you want to see next. A lot of you voted for the warm-up, so here we go. This was part 1 with the general warm-up, the shoulder complex, and the specific drills and activations I do for my movements. And the second part will come shortly with the warm-up set structure. So it will probably be a little bit more interesting than this, but this is also important and this is also valuable. So here we go, that's the video. And of course, as always, if you are interested in leveling up your weighted calisthenics equipment with top grade quality dip belt or daisy chain or rubber bands or wrist straps or t-shirts in order to train in, King of Weighted recently launched their t-shirts. They are available in both black and white. So if you are interested in leveling up your weighted game, head on over to kingofweighted.com and shop. And don't forget to use my discount code ZLAT to get additional 5% off your purchase. This way you will support me as well as developing the sport of street lifting. This was Matthew, my warm-up part 1. Part 2 will come soon. Thanks for watching.